I've made a few creepy and scary videos about Bigfoot, but this one, it might just change how you feel about Bigfoot forever, because this isn't a story about a monster hiding in the woods. It's about something much deeper. In this story, a young little Bigfoot was killed by hunters, and a man named Charles, a retired soldier and grandfather, was there when it happened. He couldn't save the creature, but what happened next stayed with him for the rest of his life. His grandson Henry, terrified and shaking, managed to capture something no one should ever have to see. The Bigfoot parents standing side by side in the snow, completely still, quietly mourning their child. It shows us that maybe these beings, if they're out there, aren't monsters at all. They feel, they grieve, they protect, and honestly, it makes you realize how cruel we can sometimes be. So before we start, take a moment, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell. It really helps keep stories like this alive, stories that remind us that not every legend is a monster. I shot a kid that night, not a human kid, but a kid all the same, somebody's child, somebody who loved it. That's the thing that still keeps me up, not the size of them, not the sounds they made. It's that I stood there in the dark with a rifle and a choice, and by the time it was over, there was a dead child on the ground, and I couldn't tell you which one of us, man or monster, was worse. You've probably seen the clip. 8 seconds, maybe 10. Shaky cell phone video. Two big shapes standing side by side in the trees, shoulders hunched, backs to the camera. Between them, on the ground, something small and dark, lying straight, not moving. No drama, no jump scare, just stillness. Most folks watch that clip and argue online. Is it fake? Is it a suit? Is it some kind of art project? They slow it down and circle things and measure shadows. For me, that 8 seconds isn't a mystery. It's the worst day of my life, trapped in a little rectangle, looping over and over. I'm 65 in that video, though you can't see me. I'm older now, retired Army. I did logistics, nothing fancy. I've seen bad things, real war things, but that winter, that's different. That wasn't enemy versus enemy. That was me, my grandson, and something in those woods that should never have crossed paths with a drunk, stupid group of hunters. Back then, I was living out in southeastern Ohio in a cabin my wife and I bought years before she passed. It's tucked way back off an old logging road, surrounded by hardwoods and hills. We had money from life insurance and some family stuff, enough to be comfortable. I didn't need to work. I cut wood, fixed things around the house, went into town maybe once a week. My grandson Henry lived with me. Henry's parents, my son and his wife, left when he was small. I'm not going to get into all that. Drugs, bad choices, people who loved the wrong things. By the time Henry was 10, he was with me full-time. When he was 16, in 2008, that cabin and those woods were all the home he really knew. We weren't survivalists or anything like that. We had satellite TV, an old truck, a landline phone, internet if the weather behaved, but we were isolated. Nearest neighbor was a couple miles. At night, when you shut off the lights, you could stand on the porch and it was just black and trees and whatever sounds decided to come in. You spend enough time out there, you know what normal is, and you know when something changes. The first time I heard about the hairy men was from an old guy at the feed store. He called them grassmen. Said they'd been seen in those hills since his granddaddy's time. Big as a door, walking upright, smelling like wet dog and garbage. I thought it was just local talk. Every rural town's got some version. I laughed it off. I'd been in real jungles. I'd seen big men do crazy things. A story about some ape in the woods didn't impress me. Still, the stories stick. You hear them enough. They're like a song you don't mean to remember. The first real thing happened late in 2008. I was out behind the cabin, cutting some deadfall for firewood. It was one of those gray afternoons where the sky just hangs there like dirty cotton, no wind. Light snow coming down, the kind that melts as soon as it hits your jacket. I remember the sound stopped. If you've never been in real woods, you might not get what I mean. There's always something going, birds, a squirrel, branches creaking. But sometimes, it's like someone hits a mute button. Everything goes still, and you feel it before you hear it. That quiet settles on you. makes you aware of your own heartbeat. I shut off the chainsaw to rest my back, and that's when I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, in the snow, off to my left, not a deer. A deer is light and quick and careful. This was measured. Like someone on two legs trying not to break branches. I thought it was a person. "Hello," I called out. Nothing. A few more steps. I could feel them more than hear them, like vibrations coming through the ground. I set the saw down and picked up the axe. Old habits. I'm not a paranoid guy, but you don't live that far out and assume every stranger is friendly. The footsteps stopped. I stood there, watching the line of trees. The snow fell a little thicker. My breath puffed out in front of me. Then, between two trunks, I saw it. Just a shape at first. Dark, almost blending with the bark. Then it shifted, and I caught the line of a shoulder. High. Too high. I realized I was looking at the upper half of somebody standing behind a tree, farther back than I thought. It turned its head. I remember the color. Not red like you see in those old Patterson photos. Dark, almost black. The hair wasn't long and flowing. It was matted, thick. The face, I don't know. I can't give you a movie monster. I saw deep-set eyes, a flat nose, a heavy brow. It looked at me for maybe 2 seconds. Then it stepped back and was gone. No crashing, no running. Just gone. I stood there like an idiot, axe in hand, for a good minute. That part's clear. The rest of the afternoon blurs. I remember going inside and telling Henry I thought someone had been on the property. I know I walked the tree line, looking for tracks. I found prints, but the snow was thin and patchy. They were big, but you can convince yourself of anything when you don't want to change your whole life around one thing you saw. I told myself it was a big guy in a coat. A hunter taking a shortcut. A trick of distance. But from that day on, I never quite felt alone out there. The weird stuff started small. We had a compost pile behind the cabin, food scraps, coffee grounds. We'd cover it with leaves. One morning, the top layer was peeled back, not dug into the way a raccoon does, just lifted and set aside. There were big smears through the food waste, like a hand had dragged across it. I checked for paw prints. Nothing. Just those same big, flat impressions in the damp leaves. Then there were the knocks. Around late fall that year, we'd hear it maybe once or twice a week. 3 sharp hits, wood on wood. Far off at first, then closer, like someone signaling. Sometimes we'd hear an answer off another ridge. 2 knocks, or 4. Henry thought it was cool. He'd be sitting by the window with his homework and freeze, eyes wide. "You hear that, Grandpa?" "I hear wood," I'd say. "Somebody out there messing around." He'd grin. "Craftsman," he'd whisper. We had no smartphones back then. Just an old flip phone in the kitchen drawer, mostly for emergencies. Henry begged me for a camera, but I didn't see the point. How many blurry deer pictures did we need? Looking back, maybe that was a blessing for a while. It wasn't all knocks and compost. We lost a chicken one night. I found the rest of the flock bunched up in the corner of the coop, wings puffed, eyes wild. The latch on the door was unhooked, not broken, just opened. No torn wire, no blood trail, and no chicken. A week later, we found a mess of rabbit fur and bones stacked on the big flat rock near the tree line. Neat pile. Like someone had cleaned it and left what they couldn't use. Henry drew lines between those things. I tried not to. "You don't know it's them," I'd tell him. Could be a neighbor kid, could be coyotes. People get weird about animals. He'd just look at me with that teenager face that says he knows better. The first time I knew, really knew, it wasn't just one of them was spring of 2009. The snow had melted. The creek was running high. The air still had that bite in it, but the sun stayed up longer, and you could smell thawed mud. We were on the back slope, checking the little game trail that led down to the water. Henry liked to set these cheap snares. Nothing professional. Just wire loops, more for the hobby of it than the meat. I saw the track first. The trail was soft from rain. Right in the middle, clear as anything, was a big bare footprint. Longer than my boot, you could see toes. Wide, heavy, and next to it, maybe a foot away, was another track, same shape, smaller, like a kid's version. They went down the hill in pairs. Big one, small one. Big one, small one. I felt my mouth go dry. Henry crouched down, hand hovering over them. "It's a family," he whispered. Not excited, just certain. I didn't say a word. You want to know when it stopped being spooky and started being personal? It was June that same year, the day Henry lost his leg. It was hot, the air was thick, bugs everywhere. Henry wanted to go down towards the lower creek, where there's more shade and bigger rocks. I wasn't feeling great that day, old man joints. Maybe a bug. So I told him to go ahead without me, stay within earshot, keep the radio on. He took his machete, just a small one we kept for clearing brush, and a backpack with water. He was 16 and thought he was tougher than the woods. I'd told him enough times not to go alone. That morning, I picked the wrong time to pick my battle. I fell asleep in the chair. That's the part that tears me up. If I'd been awake, I woke to a sound that still makes my stomach clench when I think about it. It was Henry screaming. Not a yell, not a teenage shout, a real scream, high and broken. "Grandpa, Grandpa." I was out the door before I knew I'd moved, grabbed the rifle without even feeling the weight. I ran down off the porch, heart pounding so hard I could hear it. Our land slopes down, then flattens before dropping again toward the creek. As I came over that first lip, I heard another sound under Henry's screams. This deep, angry roar. Not a bear growl. I've heard bear before. This was bigger. It had more inside it, like it was coming out of a chest the size of a fridge. Branches were snapping. I could hear something big moving through the underbrush fast. Henry's scream cut off into this horrible, choked sound. I don't remember going down that hill. I must have, because suddenly I'm halfway to the creek, crashing through ferns and saplings. The smell hit me first. Wet dirt, blood, and something musky, like an animal pen that hasn't been cleaned. There, about 20 yards ahead, I saw Henry. He was on the ground, half curled, one leg twisted under him. And standing between him and something big and brown was it, the same kind of thing I'd seen behind the trees months before. It was huge. Broad shoulders, thick neck, dark hair like I remembered. Its back was to me. It was standing between Henry and a bear, a big black bear, up on its hind legs, pawing at the air, teeth showing. The thing, this big dark figure, stepped in closer to the bear and let out another roar. Louder than anything I've ever heard from an animal. The bear swiped. The big one took the hit on its arm or shoulder, I couldn't see exactly, then shoved forward. You know how in movies, when big things move, they add that low impact sound. This didn't have that. It was just quiet and fast and awful. The bear stumbled back, crashed through some branches, and then it was gone, crashing downslope and away. I was frozen. I had the rifle up, finger near the trigger, and I couldn't move. Part of me was screaming, "Shoot!" The other part was screaming, "Don't you dare!" The big one turned half sideways like it was going to follow the bear, then stopped. Its head tilted like it heard something behind it. That's when I saw Henry's leg. From mid-thigh down, it was wrong. Torn, bent at a bad angle, blood all through the leaves. He was trying to push himself away, eyes wide, mouth opening and closing like he was trying to scream, but nothing came out. The big one looked down at him, just stood there for a second. Then it did something I still don't fully understand. It bent down and put its hand out. Huge, dark hand, fingers thick, palm wide, like you'd expect from something that size. It didn't grab him. It hovered, like it was checking if he was going to fight. Henry reached. He grabbed two of its fingers like they were a railing. The big one slipped the other arm under his shoulders, lifted him like he weighed nothing, and turned. That's when it saw me. Its eyes met mine. Dark, but not empty. There was something in them. I swear to you, there was intelligence there. Not human, but not blank animal hunger either. They were aware. It paused, holding my grandson to its chest like any parent would hold an injured kid. I could have shot it then. Center mass, close range, ended the whole mystery for the world. I didn't. We stared at each other for a moment that felt like it stretched out forever. My hands shook on the rifle. I remember thinking, if it wanted to, it could be on me before I pulled the trigger. It could rip me in half. It had just stood up to a full-grown bear for a kid that wasn't even its own. It shifted its weight, stepped sideways, and took 3 long strides toward the slope, moving uphill like it was walking over a speed bump instead of a steep rise. 2 more steps and trees blocked my view. I heard heavy footfalls for a few seconds, then nothing. I dropped the rifle and ran to where it had been. Blood on the leaves, broken branches, bits of Henry's torn pant leg. Bear tracks, big ones, deep. I scrambled back toward the cabin, lungs burning. I don't remember the run. I know I made it because next thing I remember clear is being on the landline with 911, my voice shaking as I tried to explain that my grandson had been attacked by a bear near the creek, that he was gone now, that I didn't know where. The sheriff came. The EMTs. A helicopter eventually. They found Henry about 50 yards from the cabin, just off the trail that leads up to the back porch. He was lying in the leaves, unconscious, white as paper. His leg, there's no nice way to put it, it was shredded. They said later he must have lost consciousness from blood loss and shock. They said it was a miracle he didn't bleed out before they got to him. I know what the miracle was. They amputated above the knee. He was in the hospital for a long time. Infection, surgeries, physical therapy. I didn't tell anyone what I saw. I said I heard a bear, found him bleeding, ran for help. I stuck to one story and I never wavered. If you've ever talked to hunting accident victims, you know how vague things get. Panic erases a lot of detail. People didn't question it too hard. At night, sitting beside Henry's hospital bed, I'd watch his chest rise and fall and see that big shape in the woods again, turning toward me with my grandson in its arms. He asked me about it once, several weeks after the surgery. We were home by then. He was in his bed in the small room off the kitchen, leg bandaged, pain meds making him drift. I remember hands, he said, not yours. Big, they smelled like dirt. They carried me. I looked at him. You hit your head, I said. You were in shock, he frowned. They weren't a bear, then he fell asleep. I never told him he was right, but from that day on, he stopped saying grassmen like it was some campfire myth. He started saying them like they were neighbors. Things got different after the accident. Henry had to learn how to do everything again. Get out of bed, get in a chair, move around with crutches. They fitted him for a prosthetic later, but those first months, they were hard. He was 16. He'd go from joking to staring at the wall for an hour. Anger would flare up over stupid things. Dropped glass, a missed TV show. Then he'd apologize, eyes shiny. I carried a lot of guilt. I should have been with him. I should have heard the bear sooner. I should have, everything. But there was this one thread that kept me from going under completely. Somebody else had chosen not to let him die. And I owed them. I don't know how to explain that to someone who hasn't been in debt like that. It's not like owing money. It's like somebody walking into a burning building for your kid and you never even get to shake their hand. It hangs on you. So yeah, I started watching the woods more. The knocks came back after he got home. First night I had him settled and medicated. Around 10 or so, I stepped onto the porch to smoke. It was clear and cool. Stars out, crickets going full blast. 3 knocks. Far off this time, on the ridge behind the cabin. I froze, cigarette halfway to my lips. A minute later, closer. 2 knocks. Like an answer. I didn't feel the same fear as before. I felt, watched, yeah, but not hunted. It was like we weren't alone at a funeral, if that makes sense. Like there was someone else at the edge of the crowd. A few days later, there was a dead rabbit on the same flat rock where we'd found the pile of fur months before. This one wasn't picked clean, it was whole. Neck broken, laid out neat. No bites. Henry saw it from his wheelchair when I was pushing him down the path for air. They left us something, he whispered. Or they want us to leave, I said, but it came out weak. Grandpa, he said, it saved me. He didn't say bear. He said it. I didn't argue. That fall, I started leaving stuff out. I didn't make a big ceremony of it. No candles or chanting, just payment. Once a week or so, I'd place a couple of apples or some leftover meat on that rock. I'd walk away, not look back. Most of the time, by morning, it'd be gone. No drag marks, no scatter. Sometimes there'd be a little arrangement left behind. 3 stones stacked. A broken branch leaned against a rock. Once, a long strip of tree bark peeled carefully, like someone had smoothed it with their thumb. It felt like a conversation, but in a language where all you know is please and thank you. We didn't tell anyone. You don't go into town and tell the guy pumping your gas that you're feeding a maybe Bigfoot that saved your grandson from a bear. Life settled into a new routine. Doctor visits, prosthetic fittings, Henry getting more confident on the fake leg. Winter came early in 2010, snow in November. By December, the cabin roof had a permanent white cap. That's when everything went sideways. I remember the day the hunters showed up because it started normal. I drove into town for groceries and to pick up a secondhand smartphone Henry had been bugging me about. By then, smartphones were everywhere. I still had my flip phone, but the kid wanted to go online, text, feel normal. We had money. I gave in. Got him some older model, cheap, camera not great. But to him, it was a spaceship. When I pulled into the small grocery store lot, I saw their trucks first. Big pickups with out-of-state plates, camo gear piled in the back, coolers, those orange plastic ammo boxes. 4 of them, maybe 5 guys total. Beards, beer bellies, bright clothes. They had that weekend warrior look. Not farmers, not locals. In the store they were loud, talking about bagging something big. One of them joked about needing a crane to haul it out. Another said if they got fur or a head, some research group would pay good money. I kept my head down, but my ears open. You hear about those sightings? One of them was saying by the jerky display. Up off County Road 7? Big 8 man, they said. Grassman or whatever. I got a buddy online that'll pay 5 figures for a good sample. 5 figures for a scalp, another said. Imagine a whole carcass. They laughed. That cold feeling climbed up my spine. There's a difference between people who hunt for food and people who hunt like that. I've seen both. One looks at the woods like a pantry. The other looks at it like a shooting gallery for trophies. I bought my groceries, paid cash. On the way out, one of them nodded at me. You local? He asked. Depends who's asking, I said. He laughed like we were friends. We're just out getting some target practice. These hills safe to shoot in? Not if you're aiming at the wrong thing, I said, and walked to my truck. On the drive home, all I could think about was those out-of-state plates. You live long enough in a place, you develop a sense for what doesn't belong. Those trucks didn't belong. Neither did men talking about scalps in a store where everybody knows the butcher. That night, Henry wanted to try out his phone's camera. Simon, he said from the kitchen table, phone in his hand, it's supposed to have night mode. We can maybe catch something on video, just stars even. He was walking pretty well by then with his prosthetic. He still used the cane on bad days, but he hated feeling like an invalid. I could see that light in his eyes again. Curiosity, the kind he had before the bear. Part of me wanted to protect him from everything, wrap him in blankets, and never let him outside. The other part knew that would kill him in a different way. We packed a thermos of coffee and some blankets, threw them in the truck, and drove maybe 1.5 miles from the cabin to a little clearing I knew. It had a good view of the sky and was tucked away enough that the cabin lights wouldn't interfere. We parked the truck, killed the engine, and just sat for a while, letting our eyes adjust. It was cold, real cold. Your breath kind of sticks in front of your face. The snow crunched loud under our boots when we moved. The trees around the clearing were tall and dark, branches holding little shelves of snow. Henry messed with the phone, pointing it at the stars, at me, at the woods. You think they're watching? He asked at one point, half joking, half not. I think they got better things to do than watch 2 idiots freeze, I said. He laughed. Around 10 that night we heard it, running. At first I thought it was a herd of deer. That's what it sounded like. Snow kicking up, branches slapping back. But it was heavier than deer. closer to that day in the summer when the big one had chased off the bear. The sound came from the east, down the old logging road. We killed our camp lantern without even speaking. The clearing went dark, just the faint light of the snow in the sky. We stood there, side by side, listening. Whatever it was moving fast. Then, mixed in with the heavy steps, we heard voices. Human, shouting, whooping. That ugly, drunk kind of yell. Get him, get that son o' Favage. A gunshot cracked through the trees. Then another. The echoes stacked on each other and faded. Henry looked at me, eyes wide. He had the phone in his hand, half raised. They're here, he whispered. I didn't need to ask who he meant. More gunshots, closer now. A deeper voice yelling something I couldn't make out. Laughter. Someone swearing. My stomach dropped. They're chasing them, I said. Those idiots are chasing them. I went to the truck and grabbed my rifle from behind the seat. I hadn't planned on needing it for anything more than some coyote that got too curious. Suddenly, it felt like the only thing between us and something really bad. Stay here, I told Henry. He shook his head, jaw set. I'm not staying in the truck. You can't move as fast, I said. If things go bad, Grandpa, he said, voice tight. You think they would have left me that day? After the bear? I looked at him. I saw the kid he used to be and the man he was trying to be. I saw my own stubbornness stamped on his face. Fine, I said, but you stay behind me. And if I tell you to drop, you drop. We moved toward the sound. The woods at night and winter are a different thing. They feel smaller and bigger at the same time. The snow reflects just enough light to trick your eyes. Every shadow looks like a person. Every branch looks like a hand. We followed the echoes of the shots, moving slow. I knew these woods. I knew where the ground dipped, where the rock stuck out. Henry didn't move like he used to, but he was careful. He leaned on his cane and grabbed my sleeve when it got steep. Another volley of gunfire. This time, real close. Half a dozen shots in quick succession. A pause. Then two more. Then nothing. Except the sound of someone yelling, "Reload! Reload!" I could smell gunpowder on the air. We crept up on the edge of a small ravine I knew. It opened into a shallow bowl, ringed with trees. If you didn't know it was there, you could walk right past it. Tonight, it was loud as a stadium. Voices. Swearing. One guy laughing too high. Another panting hard. I belly crawled the last few feet to the edge, motioning for Henry to stay low. We peeked over together. There were 4 of them. The same kind of guys I'd seen at the store. 2 stood near the far side of the bowl, rifles hanging loose, one with a headlamp shining off the snow. Another knelt by a shape on the ground, stabbing at it with a knife. The 4th was pacing, breathing heavy, gun barrel smoking faint in the cold air. The shape on the ground was small, maybe 4 feet long, covered in dark hair, matted with blood, arms and legs, too thin to be a bear cub, too wrong to be a deer. It was making a sound. I can't describe it right. It wasn't a scream, not like Henry's from that summer. It was more like a long, low moan, broken in the middle, like a sob. It sounded hurt and scared and very, very young. My grip tightened on the rifle. "I told you we'd get the little bastard," one of the hunters said, voice high with adrenaline. "Where's the camera?" "Where's the damn camera? We gotta get pictures before we drag it." "Shut up and make sure it's dead," the one with the knife said. He jabbed again, harder. The little body jerked. It gave another sound, weak this time. Henry sucked in a breath beside me. I could feel him trembling. "Don't you puke," I whispered. "Stay quiet." "I know that sound," he whispered back. "Grandpa, that's like the noise I heard when it carried me." The pacing one kicked snow at the kid on the ground. "Where's the big ones, huh?" he yelled, like the little thing could answer. "Where's your daddy now?" "They'll come," the headlamp guy said. He sounded less sure of himself than before. "We hit it enough. They'll come running. We'll get the big one too. They can't just leave it." Another shot cracked out, point blank. The little shape jerked once and then went still. The moaning stopped. Everything got very quiet. I don't remember making a decision to move. 1 second I was prone on the ridge, The next, my knees were sliding in the snow as I went down the slope, rifle up. "Hey," I shouted. 4 faces turned toward me. Surprise first, then annoyance, then something like calculation. "Private property," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You realize you're on it, don't you?" The man with the headlamp squinted at me. "We got permission from the state," he said. "Nuisance control." "You the landowner?" "This is my land," I said. "And that's not a nuisance. That's a kid." It felt stupid as soon as I said it, but it's what came out. The one with the knife laughed, short and sharp. "It's an animal," he said. "You want us to tag you a piece of it? Make yourself rich, old man." I walked a little closer. Not too close. You learn about distance with guns. Close enough to see clearly, far enough to react. Up close, the little one looked more real. Its limbs were thin but not weak-looking. Its chest was small, ribs shifting under the hair when it breathed. It was still breathing somehow. Its eyes were half open. Dark. Wet. There was blood everywhere. "You're poachers," I said. "You don't have a damn permit for this, and you know it." "Turn around and walk away," the pacing one said. He'd stopped now. His rifle wasn't pointed at me, but it wasn't pointed at the ground either. "We're doing the world a favor." I met his eyes. They were flat, no guilt, just annoyance that something was interrupting his fun. Behind me, I heard the soft crunch of snow as Henry came down the slope, slower. He had the phone in his hand, half raised. "Henry, stay back," I said without looking. One of the hunters noticed him. "You bring your crippled kid out here as backup?" he sneered. "That's cold, man." My vision narrowed. You live long enough and you know when a situation is tipping. We were outnumbered 4-2. They had more guns, but they also had something to lose now. They'd just shot something they probably shouldn't have. That makes people twitchy. Another gunshot rang out in the distance. Not from here. Farther off, a single shot. We all turned our heads slightly at the same time. The sound bounced around the hills. I felt the hairs on my arms rise. They weren't alone out here, and neither were we. That's when the first roar rolled over the trees. It was like the one I'd heard when the big one faced down the bear. Deep, loud, full of anger. But this time, it sounded broken, higher at the end, pain inside it. The hunters shifted. "The hell was that?" the headlamp guy muttered. "You wanted the big ones," I said. My voice sounded calm. It didn't feel that way in my chest. The pacing hunter lifted his rifle to his shoulder. "Good," he said. "Let him come." Another roar, closer. Branches snapping. Heavy steps. Not running this time. Striding. Purposeful. I did the math fast. 4 of them, 2 of us, unknown number of whatever was out there. If those big ones came in hot and saw what these idiots had done to their kid, there wouldn't be time to talk. There'd just be murder. And we'd be standing right in the middle. I had about a second to decide whose side I was on. The hunter with the knife bent down again, grabbing a fistful of the kid's hair, lifting its head like he was posing with a trophy. "You're gonna make us famous," he said. I shot him. Not in the chest. Not in the head. The army teaches you a lot about where to put a bullet. I put it in his thigh, just above the knee. I heard the crack of bone, saw his leg buckle. He went down screaming, dropping the kid's head, clutching at his leg as blood soaked his camo. Everything exploded at once. The other 3 swung their rifles toward me. I dove sideways behind a fallen log, dragged Henry with me. Shots went off, splinters flying. My ears rang. "What the hell, old man?" someone shouted. "You're done," another yelled. "You're so done." "Bullets," the headlamp guy said suddenly. His voice had that high note of panic. "We're low, man. I'm out." "Me too," the pacing one snapped. He ejected his mag, stared at it like it had betrayed him. They'd burned most of their ammo into that kid. The roaring was almost on top of us now, heavy crashing through the brush, shaking the smaller trees. Something big moving with no concern for staying quiet. Henry grabbed my sleeve. "Grandpa," he whispered. "They're coming." I peeked over the log. The kid on the ground wasn't moving anymore. Its eyes were closed now, blood dark around its head. The wounded hunter was trying to drag himself backward, smearing red across the snow. The others were scrambling, looking around like the woods might open up and swallow them. "You idiots brought this," I shouted at them. "Get out. Run. Now." They stared at me, then at the tree line behind us. When the first big one stepped into the bowl, they didn't move at all. It was taller than the one I'd seen by the creek. Or maybe it just seemed that way because it was angry. Dark hair, shoulders like a linebacker times 3. Its chest was heaving. You could see scars on its arms and across its ribs, lighter lines under the fur. Behind it, half hidden by trees, was another shape, slightly smaller, narrower shoulders, long hair around the head like a mane. I couldn't see its face clearly, but there was something in the way it moved that read as feminine, I guess. They stopped at the edge of the bowl. The hunters froze too. Nobody raised their gun. Nobody spoke. The big male, at least that's what my brain labeled him, looked at the kid on the ground, then at the hunters, then at us. The roar that came out of him then wasn't like the ones before. It started low, then climbed, breaking into something like a wail. The sound hit me in the chest. It made my eyes water. It was grief and rage wrapped up together. The smaller one behind him made a sound too, higher, shorter, almost like a sob. The wounded hunter on the ground whimpered. "Jesus Christ," he said. "Oh God, oh God." One of his buddies dropped his rifle and bolted up the slope, slipping in the snow, hands clawing at the dirt. Another followed, leaving the third standing there with his headlamp beam bouncing wild. "Don't run," I yelled absurdly. Like it mattered now. They ran anyway. People always think they're faster than they are. The big male stepped forward, one foot thudding into the snow. His eyes never left the kid on the ground. His breathing had gone shallow and fast. His hand came up, fingers spread, not a fist, not claws, just a hand reaching out like he wanted to touch his child and couldn't quite believe it was real. We were too far away to see tears, but I swear to you, whatever was in his face was one of the saddest things I've seen in my life. Henry had the phone up. His hands were shaking, but he held it steady enough. He didn't zoom in. He didn't run closer. He just recorded. "Don't move," I whispered. He didn't answer. The big male and the smaller one walked slowly into the bowl. They didn't look at the hunters again. The one with the shot leg was half sobbing, half praying under his breath. The adults stopped on either side of the kid. The male on the left, the female on the right. They didn't touch each other. They didn't howl to the sky. They just stood. If you watch that clip, the one everyone argues about, that's what you're seeing. Two big, dark figures, standing still in the snow, looking down. They stood like that for a long time. Long enough that my knees started to hurt from crouching. Once, the female reached down, just a little, like she was going to brush the kid's arm. Then she pulled her hand back and let it hang. The male's shoulders rose and fell. Once, his head tipped back, like he was swallowing something hard. Henry lowered the phone slowly. I saw tears on his face, shining in the faint snow glow. "We did this," he whispered. "No," I said, but it sounded weak even to me. "They did." I nodded at the hunters. The wounded one looked at me, eyes wide, face pale. "Help me," he mouthed. I didn't move. Eventually, the big ones moved. The male bent down and slid his arms under the kid's body, lifting it like it weighed nothing. The kid's head lolled. One arm swung loose. The female laid a hand gently on the kid's chest as he lifted. Just for a second, then they turned and walked back toward the trees, the kid cradled against the male's chest. They didn't look at us. They didn't run. They just left. The female's hand stayed on the kid's stomach as they walked, like she was holding him in place. When they disappeared into the trees, the silence crashed down. The wounded hunter started sobbing in earnest. Big, ugly sounds. His buddies had vanished into the woods. I still don't know if they made it out of the hills that night or not. Someone must have, because nobody found a bunch of bodies out there later. "Grandpa," Henry said, "we have to do something." I looked at the man on the ground, clutching his leg. Then at the bloody snow where the kid had been. "We're leaving," I said. I didn't help the hunter. I'm not proud of that, but I'm not ashamed either. We backed up the slope slowly. I never turned my back fully on the trees. My hands shook the whole time. When we got to the top, we moved quick, not running, but fast. Back toward the truck. Back toward our little makeshift camp. Henry's phone felt like a live thing in his hand. He kept looking down at it, then away. "Don't post it," I said. The words came out before I'd even thought them through. "I wasn't going to," he said. His voice was tight. I needed to, I don't even know. At the truck, I made him get in first, locked the doors. I stood outside a moment staring into the trees, listening. Somewhere deep in the hills, very faint, I thought I heard one last, long cry. Softer than before, not anger, just loss. I got in the truck and drove us home. We went back the next morning. I don't know why. Some things you do because you can't stand not knowing. Some things you do because you feel like you owe it. We waited until the sun was up, drank our coffee without tasting it, didn't talk much. Then we bundled up, grabbed shovels, and walked. The woods looked different in daylight, but my feet knew the path. We didn't speak until we were standing on the edge of that bowl again. The blood was still there. Dark, crusted patches in the snow. Prints everywhere. Boot prints from the hunters. Big bear-like prints from the adults. A few smaller, smearier ones from the kid. No bodies. No guns. No people. The only thing left was the mess. We stood there for a minute just breathing. Then Henry pointed past the bowl. "Look," he said. There was a trail. You could see where something heavy had been carried. The snow was broken, pressed down, leading up and over the far ridge. We followed it. It wound through the trees, around a couple of big rocks, then dipped into a small hollow. There, in a patch of thin snow and brown leaves, we saw them. The male and the female. They were standing side by side, backs to us, just like in the video. The kid lay on the ground in front of them, straight on its back, arms at its sides. Someone had moved the blood-matted hair away from its face. They didn't move when we came into view. Either they'd heard us and didn't care, or they were so wrapped up in what they were doing that nothing else registered. Henry's breath hitched. He raised the phone. I didn't tell him to stop. He held it up, thumb shaking a little, and hit record. We only stayed a few seconds. 8, 10, something like that. Long enough for the image to burn into the screen and into our brains. Long enough to see the male's shoulders rise once, like he was taking a deep, painful breath. Then I put my hand on Henry's arm and tugged. We backed away slowly, careful not to snap branches. It felt wrong to watch them any longer. Wrong to turn their grief into a show, even if no one else was watching. We went back to the bowl. Stood there again, staring at the trampled snow. "We can't just leave him," Henry said. "He's not ours," I said. He looked at me with that look again, the one that makes you feel like you failed the test. "They didn't leave me," he said. "That was it." We walked back to the cabin and grabbed the shovels. It took us a couple of hours to dig. The ground was half frozen, hard under the thin layer of snow. We picked a spot not far from where they'd laid him, a little rise with some young pines around it. It felt safe, I guess, tucked away but not hidden. I don't know what I thought would happen, that the big ones would charge out and tear us apart for touching their dead, that they'd stand by and watch, that they'd be gone. They were gone. When we went back to the hollow, the kid's body was still there, alone now. No sign of the adults. Maybe they'd gone to chase off the hunters. Maybe they just couldn't stand there any longer. Up close, the kid looked smaller, less like a monster and more like what he was. A child caught between worlds, hair dark and stiff with blood, lips parted a little, eyes closed. Henry knelt beside him. He didn't touch the body at first, just sat there, breathing shallow, shovel leaning against his shoulder. "I should have done something," he said. "Last night, I should have stopped them." "You couldn't," I said. "You'd be dead too. They had guns." "You had a phone," he snorted, a bitter little sound. "Yeah. Great trade." I squatted on the other side of the kid, reached out slowly and brushed some snow off his arm. The hair was coarse under my gloved hand. The limb underneath was firm but small. Fragile, comparatively. "Thank you," I said quietly. I don't know who I was talking to. The kid, for whatever his family had done for Henry. The big one at the creek. The woods themselves. Then we lifted him together, me taking most of the weight, Henry steadying, and carried him to the hole we'd dug. We didn't say any prayers. It didn't feel right to put our words on him. We just laid him down gently, straightened his arms, and stood there for a moment. Henry made a sound that was almost a laugh. "This is insane," he said. "Do you know that? We're burying a Bigfoot kid, Grandpa." "That sounds like a bad joke." "It's not a joke," I said, "and if anybody ever hears about this, it won't be from me." He nodded, jaw tight. We filled the hole, shovel after shovel of cold dirt and snow. It stuck to the shovel, clumped. My back screamed at me. My hands went numb. I kept going. When it was done, we had a low mound. We patted it down, smoothed it. Henry took 3 stones from nearby and set them in a little row at the head, a big one in the middle, 2 smaller ones on either side. Like his parents, he said. I wanted to tell him that was too on the nose, that we were making a story out of their pain, but I couldn't. He needed something. So did I. We stood there a while longer. The woods felt attentive. That's the only word I've got. Like every tree was leaning in a little. I half expected to feel eyes on the back of my neck, to hear a branch snap and see a huge shape watching us. Nothing like that happened. We walked home in silence. We never saw the big ones again, not like that anyway. In the weeks after, the knocks stopped. No more rabbit gifts on the rocks. No more peeled bark. The woods went back to normal. Birds, deer, coyotes, the usual life and death, except it didn't feel normal. It felt empty. I'd sit on the porch some evenings with my coffee, listening, hoping, and also hoping I would never hear that roar again, both at the same time. It's a strange headspace, missing something that terrifies you. The sheriff came by 2 days later to ask if we'd heard gunfire that night. Someone had called from the highway, said they thought they'd heard shooting up near our way. I told him I'd heard some distant shots, thought it was just folks target practicing. He mentioned they'd found a blood trail and some shell casings near an old fire pit a few miles away, but no body, no one camped there anymore. Probably drunk hunters, he said. People forget these aren't their fields, he grumbled. You hear anything else, you let me know. I will, I lied. I didn't mention the man I'd shot in the leg. I didn't mention the kid we'd buried. I checked the news for a while, seeing if anyone reported a guy showing up in some emergency room with a gunshot wound and a story about a crazy old man. Nothing. Maybe they patched him up themselves. Maybe he died in those hills. I don't know. What I do know is that nobody came asking about a small, hairy body missing from the woods. The world rolled on, happy not to know. As for the video, we kept it to ourselves for a long time. Henry watched it a lot at first, not in a creepy way, more like someone replaying the worst accident of their life, trying to see where they could have turned the wheel. I should have shouted, he'd say. Done something. When they were stabbing him, they would have shot you, I'd say. Then there'd be 2 bodies on that ground. He'd scrub the video back and forth, pause on the way the male's shoulders sagged, on the female's hand hovering over the kid, on the stillness. It's not scary, he said one night. Not like people want scary. It's just sad. Real things are often just sad, I said. He didn't show it to his friends. He barely had any that came out that far anyway. He didn't upload it. Didn't send it to those online research groups that would have dissected it frame by frame. Years later, he made contact with one guy who ran some kind of podcast about encounters. A decent-seeming man, respectful. Henry sent him the clip with conditions. No face, no names, no location. Just the 8 seconds. The guy put it up on a show once. People argued in the comments, same as always. Costume, CGI, pareidolia. A few said, this feels off, like a funeral. Those ones, I think, got closer than they knew. Most just scroll past. It's too quiet. Not enough drama. We never gave anyone the whole story. Not until now. You asked me in the beginning if I believe in Bigfoot. I don't like that question. Do you believe in deer? Do you believe in bears? Belief's got nothing to do with whether something's there when you step in front of it. I don't have a grand theory about where they came from or what they are. I don't know if there's 100 of them in these hills or 3. I don't know why they didn't finish me off that day at the creek, or why they didn't tear those hunters to pieces in front of us when they had every right to. I just know what I saw. I know that something big and smart and strong enough to tear a bear off my grandson chose instead to carry him towards safety. I know that something in those woods grieved for its child in a way that looked a whole lot like the way I grieved for my son when he threw his life away. I know that there's a little mound of earth under some young pines up on a rise not far from here, where snow piles in winter and melts in spring, and that under that mound is a body the world would pay a lot of money to dig up just to prove a point. And I know I'll put a bullet in the leg of anybody who comes with a shovel and a TV crew. Do I have proof? I've got 8 seconds of shaky video and a grandson who wakes up some nights, sweating, to the sound of a roar that no one else hears. I've got a scar on my heart from a debt I'll never fully repay.